Newcastle's midfield were like completely baffled.
The fact that he almost has to earn his place back in Arsenal's team, particularly with Eza coming into the side.
Eddie Howe, I thought, blinked too soon. But if they go on and win this, I think they'll win the title.
Is that just baiting Arsenal fans?
No, there's a few people in there who are going, this guy must be an Arsenal fan. I am not, I'm a Spurs fan. But that just shows how fair I think I can be.
Riding their luck or the sign of champions. Arsenal fans will not care this morning after their side left it late to win 2-1 at Newcastle United and capitalise on Liverpool's defeat at Crystal Palace to go within 2 points of the top of the Premier League. I'm Will Pugh. That right there is Sun Sports tactical guru Dean Scoggins, and we are back in the Tactics Exposed studio. And Dino, as ever, you are going to break down 5 tactical things from the game that fans may or may not have noticed as Arsenal got themselves well and truly back in the title race.
Yeah, what a game. Absolute. The belter, to not in a Geordie accent, that we've been waiting for this season. And I'm going sign of champions, not luck, OK? But let's get into that in a minute. First of all, number 1, scrambled legs. Now that is Trossard and Rice. And maybe in the excitement, something Arsenal fans won't have seen that Arsenal did a little bit differently. Number 2, Free and Eza. Finally, the number 10. Finally in the middle and close to Gyökeres, which caused all sorts of problems. That leads on to number 3, which is Ode to Joy. What a sub. What a sub Martin Odegaard is, and the impact he had late on and what the Eza position means for him. Number 4, turned a corner in the title race. Another corner, but it was a horror defensive moment for Gabriel, followed by something else, and we'll come on to the Saliba role as well. And number 5 is pick a mix. There was a horrible moment for Nick Pope in there, but let's be really positive from an Arteta point of view. Changed formations, went attacking and went for that win.
Absolutely, Dino. Well, look, there's lots of things that we discussed on Team Talk on Thursday that came to fruition in this game. Very interesting indeed. Let's talk about scrambled legs at first, then scrambled legs, whichever one. Declan Rice, Leandro Trossard. You spoke about how Newcastle were likely to set up and the importance of their midfield on Team Talk on Thursday, and Mikel Arteta and Arsenal had the perfect antidote to that.
Yeah, it was really clever and it was really good. I was texting back and forth with a few Arsenal mates while the game was going on, and obviously they're excited in the game, so they're not looking at it quite in the same way as me.
Contrary to popular belief, then, you do have Arsenal friends.
I do have Arsenal friends, yeah. And I did really enjoy the comments this week as well, because there's a few people in there who are going, this guy must be an Arsenal fan. I am not. I'm a Spurs fan. But that just shows how fair I think I can be.
Non-biased.
Yeah,
exactly,
absolutely. But yeah, so this was really interesting right early on in the game, because the debate was going on commentary, online, about what formation Newcastle were playing. Was it 3-4-3? Was it 4-5-1? Was it, the sort of 4-3-3? Of those formations, none of that really matters to what happens with their midfield.
Right.
In all of those formations, the midfield 3 is Joe Linton, Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes. Right. So it's a 3-man midfield. So Arteta's plan was to disrupt, scramble, break that midfield 3. And it was really, really cleverly done. And the way they did it in build-up and the way they moved up the field meant that that's why they had so much territorial domination early on, and why they kept creating those chances, which they really should have been ahead, if not out of sight, in the game. And what's happening here is that Trossard, as the left-hand side of the front 3, so we'll show our graphic of this, the left-hand side of the front 3, you'd think, when the goalkeeper's got the ball or when they're playing out, is in a sort of inside left, up left position. No, what they did was Trossard came right back into midfield, at times between Zubimendi and Rice. And what he's trying to do there is, remember our old rope-a-dope we've talked about before, is bring a midfielder with him. So not necessarily the full-back, which would have been Livramento. It would have been Joe Linton or Bruno Guimaraes. Bring him with him so that then you're creating this big space where the ball can go direct into Gyökeres. So again, we talked about them needing to go up to Gyökeres. And then you've got that man, Declan Rice, who the ground that he covers. I mean, I know it hurts you to keep hearing me praise Declan Rice with your West Ham hat on, but goodness me, what it is 2 players in one, because as they're set up, he's in a 2 with Zubimendi as the double pivot, as we talked about, and then Trossard comes in, makes that Newcastle midfield line not be a flat line of three. It makes them jagged and all over the place, so they're not solid. And then as the ball goes in the air or goes wide, Rice just charges through the middle and therefore becomes the holder in a set shape and the man who's then going to win the second balls up the field, which means Newcastle's midfield were overpowered by it. And Trossard did this really, really great thing in attack as well, where he moved into an inside left position, which meant Calafiori moved up the outside. So Trossard and Rice were doing this sort of tango dance between them, which meant Newcastle's midfield were like completely baffled about who was picking them up, whether they were sticking to their position or twisting and going out to press. So it was really, really clever from those two and obviously Arteta to make Newcastle not as solid as they have been.
Is that an example, Dino, of Mikel Arteta almost using Newcastle's desire and tendency to go man for man against them, knowing that's going to happen? He's like, OK, well, if you're going to do that and stay on us, we're going to drag you all over the place.
I love that you listen to me now in the previous show. You're absolutely hit the nail. Yeah, hit the nail on the head. No, but you are. You've hit the nail on the head because Newcastle, as we showed in the previous show and as we've shown in previous games, are a man-for-man defensive unit. So, as I said, that's why it doesn't really matter whether they were 5-4-1 or 4-5-1, however you want to call it. They go man for man. And so because they do that, you can attract people into different positions. And where we talked about in the preview show, and we'll go back to that cup final episode we did where they beat an Arsenal in the semi-final over two legs and then they beat Liverpool, they make the pitch massive and they're quite comfortable to do that because that midfield three goes up and back as a unit and goes to their men. But what Arsenal did was the crossover of positions, which then means, well, hang on, Livramento was the right back, he's gone into midfield, Joe Linton's all of a sudden in a right back position, then all of a sudden the centre half follows somebody else out and that means Gyökeres is 1v1 in the air against Livramento. So it was really, really good from Arsenal. And not just that, from a scrambled position as they getting Newcastle to play out, when they then get into their attacking shape, they're in their gorgeous 3-2-5, you know, where they've got the double pivot and then Calafiori pushes up to the left and then they've got Trossard, Eze and Saka with Gyökeres. So both in transitional phases and in the attacking phase, Arsenal were far better.
There was certainly no yoke, were they? I thought we'd been doing loads more egg puns in there. I thought that was right up your street. Right, talk to me then, Dino. Point number 2, Eberechi Eze. We focused on him in Team Talk on Thursday and how him and Gyökeres sort of had the potential to break that huge curse that Mikel Arteta had, that awful record up at Newcastle, of course. And although perhaps not as headline-grabbing as Arsenal fans would have hoped, had a couple of chances, he was very important, wasn't he, to the way the game went.
He was, and look, he was a couple of inches either way from being headline-grabbing because he was, you know, Nick Pope made some great saves in there, and it's really interesting to see the position that Eze was taking up there. I mean, again, with the banter that was going back and forth with the Arsenal fan, they call it banter.
Yeah, I mean, it never is, is it? Yeah.
with me anyway. Yeah. But they, you know, we did mention that Eze's first touch does make you go a little bit tingly. It's so good. You know, it is so good. But yeah, so interestingly, he was the 10. So in a defensive shape, just quickly, he was doing the job that Odegaard does. So 4-4-2, you go with Gyökeres, you are the 2, you are the press lead. So again, Arteta gave him the responsibility of that. Why are you laughing at me now?
Gyökeres?
Gyökeres.
No? Sorry.
You're still thinking about eggs. Did you not have breakfast this morning?
Yeah, I'm not listening to anything you're saying. I'm thinking about egg puns. Sorry, carry on.
So yeah, they pressed as a 2, and it was really good to see that Arteta then, and we talked, do you remember a few weeks ago, you said maybe he didn't play Eze there because he didn't trust him to lead the press yet.
Quite.
So he did in
like Odegaard has
Absolutely.
done for
exactly that. So Eze was given that responsibility. But also, it also was a very clever movement along the line. So it wasn't that just Trossard came in as the left 10, if you like, and Eze was the right 10. That allowed Calafiori to go up the left. That allowed Saka to go up the right. But most importantly, and I'm happy to say there's one particular comment that dug me out in the preview show that will hopefully be coming back in and explaining that actually I was right all along, is that it was all about getting forwards close to Gyökeres. So he has, because of the runs he makes, he gets isolated.
This is what you covered in
Exactly, yeah. I wanted to see, or what Arsenal would have wanted to see, and they did, was forwards get closer to Gyökeres. So don't leave your wingers parked on the wings, because that then leaves him alone against two centre-backs. And he did a good job again. He was battered and bruised a little bit, but Eze was the man who got really close to him, and that creates indecision. And then Trossard, from that left out to in position, comes in and joins Eze off Gyökeres, and there were 3 or 4 times where we saw that triangle very close together in attack. If Eze got dragged out wide, Saka was clever, and he went in and made that 3. So they knew what they were doing. It was very, very deliberate the way they set up in that way, because Newcastle sort of had Dan Burn in the left back position a lot of the time, and Arsenal just went, it's all right, he's all right over there. If they play the ball out around us that way, we'll get back into shape and cover. Zubimendi did a good job on that right-hand side of getting over. And by the way, just a quick mention, nothing tactical, but Jurriën Timber was absolutely sensational in this game.
It really was.
And so that meant that Arsenal almost had an extra man everywhere. Trossard and Rice are doing that up and back. Eze's doing the press role and the number 10 role. Gyökeres is taking 2 men out up front, and the forwards are coming in close. So then it was like, they're going to score at some... I'm shocked they didn't score. So just to mention that with Eze, that sort of little area on the edge of the box, he kept doing it brilliantly. Against Arsenal, they put pressure on your 6-yard line and your penalty spot. The crosses go in, corners, free kicks, whatever it is, crosses from wide, Saka cutting in and playing the ball in. And they put so much pressure that this space gets created. It's almost like a little forgotten area, where if somebody heads the first one clear, the follow-up man comes in. Zubimendi did it for his volley a couple of weeks ago. Ran onto it, smashed it in. Eze picked up that position very deliberately, told to be there. Pope made a couple of great saves, and Eze was really unlucky not to score. So it's an interesting one, and we'll come on to this now of what it means for Odegaard.
Absolutely, it's cracking stuff from Arsenal, Dino. Martin Odegaard then... Really, really seems odd, doesn't it, that we're talking, and lots of Arsenal fans are as well, about the fact that he almost has to earn his place back in Arsenal's team, particularly with Eze coming into the side. And that is also fueling a lot of the Arsenal fans saying, we've now got the depth. This is what we want. This is why we're going to win the title. Not getting carried away, as they never do, of course. But talk to me about Martin Odegaard.
Yeah, well, I actually said, again, in some of the WhatsApp groups, like, if they go on and win this, I think they'll win the title. Because it's that feeling that you can go and do that.
Is that just baiting Arsenal fans?
No.
You do like to get them riled up.
Fans. Yeah, no, but I don't want them doing it. I'm, from my Tottenham hat.
Yeah, it is.
But I just think that you hit the nail on the head again there with the Odegaard as a sub. I mean, what a sub. Yeah. If Odegaard had started and then you've got Martinelli, Trossard or Eze to bring on, wow. Odegaard doesn't start because he's not quite been back to full fitness. But the great thing about it from Arsenal's perspective is that they can change it up slightly with all those players in different ways. I actually thought that the Trossard role in attack, not the bit with Rice where he was swapping over and going deep, the position he picked up in attack means that if Trossard didn't start and it was Odegaard who started, you could play Odegaard there or you could play Eze there. And so that interchangeable front three, Saka, Eze, Odegaard, wow, and then that means that in a game they can move positions and they can be adaptable rather than it being what it became last year of quite predictable. Arsenal last season were brilliant at what they did, but you did know what they were going to do. And this season, and particularly in this game, there were 4 or 5 signs where, oh, hang on a minute, they're doing something new here, they're doing something different. And when Odegaard came on, it was for Zubimendi, and he didn't just go into a deep-lying role replacing what Zubimendi did. He engaged that line, and that gave Newcastle a different problem. 3 or 4 times, they tried to scoop the ball up over Newcastle's 2 compact lines, and Odegaard was the one who could play through it.
Just go back to, when you say engage the lines, what do you mean?
Yeah, so Newcastle play when they were defending. I actually thought I will come back to this in Arteta's section in a minute, but Eddie Howe, I thought, blinked too soon. Okay. I think they made a defensive change which made them go 5 at the back a little bit too early. And then obviously the Livramento injury happens, which didn't help. But when they'd gone to 5-4-1 or 5-5, really, 2 lines of 5, they get very compact. They're very, very good at it. Conceded the least number of shots, least number of goals this season. You know, they're just the best defensive unit in the league at the moment, alongside Arsenal. But that means that the 2 lines of 5 are on the edge of the box out there. And often what teams do is they go in that dreaded horseshoe pattern where they go up and round and side to side and they never engage the line. And often it's the holding midfield player or the centre-backs who just get easy ball, right? It's easy, but then they just go sideways and around. Odegaard goes into that first line, takes the ball under pressure, it drags somebody out, and then he can move the ball off quickly and it opens the space up for somebody else. There was an amazing pass into Miles Lewis-Skelly where he actually passed it through both lines. He didn't just beat one line, he beat both of them with a pass. And that's the ability that he's got. Not that Zubimendi had a bad game, he didn't at all, but Odegaard just brings that something extra to that situation.
Extra?
We go, still going. Very good.
Just quickly.
We'll get to half a dozen in a minute.
Sorry, everyone. Gabriel, though, Dino, is a man who is used to being in the headlines, and he was in there for good and bad reasons again at the weekend. Could have given away a penalty. That was rightly not given. Also, the little bit of an altercation with Woltemade.
He was a little bit lucky there, wasn't he?
Exactly. Could see some action over that incident this week, but as he's done time and time again, he pops up at the end to nod home the winner. Yeah,
let's not talk about refereeing decisions. Let's leave that for Mark Housey in the whistleblower to do. And let's just talk about look, they're brilliant at set pieces. But what was interesting here was Newcastle as well are brilliant at set pieces. Right. And both of these teams have clearly identified something which they both exploited in the same game, which was amazing to see, is that now that, do you remember we talked about the force field around the 6-yard line in a previous episode where Manchester United were actually blocking their own goalkeeper from coming to command the area?
Sort of like a protective shell.
Exactly, that protective shell around the goalkeeper, and teams are getting better at stopping the ball getting into a dangerous area for their goalkeeper, okay? They're getting better at it. And so what these teams have both identified is that a short corner can change that dynamic. I'm going to say in the next few weeks, we're going to see twice as many short corners as we've seen in the first 5-6 games of the season.
That's what we saw from Merino's goal, right?
Exactly, and Newcastle's. Yeah. Because they changed the angle, and the reason it's successful is what you don't want to be as a defender is in your 6-yard box, do you? You don't really want to be there. So as soon as someone takes a short corner and knocks it back to somebody who's going to cross it the other way, everybody steps up. Right. Nothing wrong with that, they step up. But what that does is create this space. And both teams targeted it. First of all, Woltemade, and we've got to say that Gabriel, that was woeful. Absolutely woeful. I mean, if your centre-back is falling over 8 yards out when somebody puts a hand like that on their back, then they deserve to concede a goal.
Because he wins that header, doesn't he?
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I mean, when the ball's coming in, why is he thinking about what the guy behind him's doing? Just head it, man. Just absolutely get rid of it. And I think he gets caught up in the games in the area too much. And if you think how dominant he is in the air, he'd just be going for every ball. Forget what's going on everywhere else. Just go for every ball.
It's just I understand that in Premier League football these days, the dark arts are part of it, right? Yeah. And making referees aware. But in that instance, surely it's too much of a high-risk strategy.
Exactly, yeah. And when you've got the 6'12" bloke behind you, just you don't miss it because he's going to head it. And again, referees can never really justify how strong the touch is. And all the Arsenal players are going push, but look, just deal with it. But it was all because Newcastle created that space. They didn't just sling it into a crowded area. They went back. Then Arsenal did the same thing for Merino. Comes back to Declan Rice. They have that space in front of Merino that then he can attack, and another brilliant header. And then, of course, the winner. So Mosquera starts the game. I'm not quite sure the reason why they took him off. Maybe it was that ridiculously skewed clearance where he gave the corner away for the Newcastle goal. But, there's possibly an injury. But then Saliba comes in and Gabriel's got his mate back on corners. And the two of them are a nightmare to deal with. And while obviously everyone was focusing on Gabriel's header, if you actually look very closely, Saliba has done Pope. He's not fouled him, he's done him. He's got into a position where Pope can't come.
So you think it's more of a Saliba positive than a Nick Pope negative?
Yeah, absolutely. The guy, and look, Pope would have liked to think he would have got that most of the time, but it was eventually the sort of straw that broke the camel's back.
OK, well, talk to me then, Dino, about Mikel Arteta. Not we, I say we. You were quite diplomatic, I think, in when talking on Team Talk about the criticism he'd been receiving about not necessarily going for it in games. Arteta insists that he's more than happy to go gung-ho when it calls for it tactically. However, you were a lot more impressed with Arsenal's approach in this game, and you felt sort of they got what they deserved based on the fact they went for it.
They definitely got what they deserved, and they were the better team all the way through. Their intent was so much better, but they needed to win one of these games. They have to. If the longer it goes where you don't win one of these games, they were the better team for the large part of the game at Anfield.
These games, you mean the big ones,
the big
away
ones
from
that
home?
are close.
The
big ones are at home as well. Manchester City at home.
Right.
They were the better team against Manchester City and didn't win the game. You know, they were the better team at Anfield for large parts of the game, but were just safe. You know, and everyone's talked about this handbrake. Well, he took the handbrake off here. You know, he played, I think, 4 different formations in the game, and he had not only just a plan B, but he had a plan C and a plan D as well, which was absolutely brilliant. There was a great moment where it was the board is just about to go up to say how much added time, and they've scored already, and he knows, he's heard them say it's going to be 8, so he's going 8 lads, 8, and he's waving them forwards. That's not what he's done before. He's maybe in previous years or previous weeks even, he's gone to St James's Park, been 1-0 down, got an equaliser and gone, that's a good result.
That'll do,
right? Yeah, but that, if you're chasing the title, as I keep saying, won't do. That is what they need to do. And so, yeah, just to go through those formations. So we talked about the way they set up with Trossard, and they set up in that 3-2-5 shape going forwards. Then, obviously, they make their substitutions. That Saka's was never going to be able to do 90, so Martinelli comes on. But he takes off Calafiori, the left back, and brings on Merino. Now, he's brought on Merino for 2 reasons. One, he knows Merino's very clever at opening play up for other people. It's not just about when he touches the ball, but obviously for the set pieces, tick. And that meant Trossard went to left wing back almost. So they've got Timber one side and Trossard the other, the 2 centre backs, and then Declan Rice playing 2 positions in one again, you know, as that. And then they score, and it's like, right, we want to win the game, but actually we've got a risk here because Alanga was going the other way. So then he brings on Miles Lewis-Skelly. He brought on Odegaard already as well. Brings on Miles Lewis-Skelly to bring the formation back again. So he was still going for the win, but it was just, we're going to win it by recycling the ball more. And we know how good Miles Lewis-Skelly is at that, control and play from there.
Well, the other thing is as well, as you've mentioned, and we've covered so many times on Tactics Exposed before, Mikel Arteta absolutely hates getting fried in transitions.
Yes, yeah. And he played the situation in this game. And that's been my criticism, lots of people's criticism, you know, Arsenal fans and non-Arsenal fans about him before. It's that this is the plan and we are not going to deviate from it. In this game, he had those different plans. He saw it in front of him. He reacted. He's got the substitutes to do it. And that's why they went on to win the game. They keep doing that. It's a 2-horse race.